Hello and welcome. So this is going to be a free presentation where I'm going to go through the basics or the foundational sort of framework in approaching depression in a completely new way. So I've titled this presentation, How to Clear Depression for Good Without Struggling, Taking Medications, or Giving Up the Things You Enjoy. And what's going to be unique about this particular approach is that we're using and utilizing traditional Oriental medicine and traditional Oriental psychology as a kind of a new angle in on what depression is and how to treat it. So let's get into it. So first of all, because we are entering a medical space, I do need to say that this is not meant to be a substitute for professional medical advice or diagnosis. And if you're ever unsure, always speak to your medical doctor or your preferred health practitioner. So it's not to advise you to behave a certain way, and therefore hello and welcome. So this is going to be a free presentation to lay some of the groundwork and the foundational kind of knowledge base in order for us to start approaching depression in a new way. So I've titled it How to Clear Depression for Good Without Struggling, Taking Medications, or Giving Up the Things You Enjoy. And what's really unique about this particular angle is that we're going to be coming at it from traditional Chinese medicine or traditional Oriental medical psychology framework. So it's a completely new angle into depression, what it is, how it works, and essentially how to treat it. So let's get into it. So first of all, we are entering a medical space. So I do need to put this disclaimer here and say that all this information or any of this information is not intended to replace your medical advice from your chosen health practitioner. Okay, so let's get into it. So what is coming up? So let's just lay the foundations or the framework for where we're going to go with this. And there's a lot of information to cover, but I'm going to try and go through it quick because I don't want to take too much of your time. I really want to sort of get into the juice of it because it's actually better for me that you get these basic concepts down pat, and it's also better for you so that you can start using it or applying it or testing it in your own life. So we're coming at it from Chinese medicine perspective and the Eastern psychology perspective, and I'm sure once I show you what it's like, it's really interesting, really fascinating, and does make a lot of sense. We're going to be touching the 5-element theory, which comes out of Chinese medicine again, or Taoism. We're going to be talking about the different types of depression, what depression actually means, how it's translated, and also I'm going to be giving you some real practical tips so you can start clearing it right away. So what does depression, the actual word, mean? So it comes from 14th century Latin, and it literally means to press down upon. So this is indicating that depression is a heaviness, a heavy feeling. And as we go into energetic kind of human energy field kind of work, which is rooted in Chinese medicine, is that it totally makes sense because it's saying that our energy field, our energy body is also being pressed. So we'll talk more about that later. So also I'm going to offer a bit of a special offer if you do stay around to the end of the presentation. I'll give you some instructions, and all you have to do is email me with a special thingy that I'll show you later, and I'll give you free courses just as kind of an incentive to stay around with me, and so you get something really valuable out of this as well from spending your time with me. So to get the most from this presentation, I really ask that you focus. And that means if you've got multiple browsers open, if you've got your phone, if you've got the TV on, then to get the most out of this, and if you're really serious about learning how to tackle depression, then I ask you to please put those away and just focus for the next hour. I'll try and get it down, but it'll probably be around an hour or less if I can get there. So who am I? So my name is Michael Hetherington, and that's a picture of me. I was taken probably about a week ago actually at a cafe in Chiang Mai. I was doing some work and I thought, oh, I'll just take a selfie actually. So that's what came out. I'm originally from Brisbane, Australia. That's where I grew up. So I'm an Aussie. However, I haven't been grounded in Australia for a year and a half. I'm mainly living in Thailand, Bali, a little bit of Australia, and I'm starting to migrate towards Germany. I love the music and stuff like that, but a bit more. Oh, so Brisbane. I threw this map in there because many people aren't so familiar with Brisbane. They know where Sydney is and stuff, but not so much Brisbane. So here we go. So Brisbane is here in Queensland, the capital of Queensland. And probably the best thing about Brisbane is that we've got really good beaches. Sunshine Coast is here and the Gold Coast is here. So a bit more about my background. So I've got a Bachelor in Health Science from Charles Sturt Uni, and as well as an advanced diploma in acupuncture, which is a 3-year program. And part of that program is we really do have to study a lot of Western medical stuff like anatomy, physiology, chemistry, biochemistry, all those sorts of things, because what we're doing when we're studying Chinese acupuncture is we're learning the Chinese sort of language, their language of understanding disease, but we also have to be able to translate it across to Western diseases. So that's why we need a bit of both. And the difference with the Chinese medical stuff is that it's completely different dialogue. It's a completely different way of understanding disease. And that's what I'm going to be showing you a bit today. And it actually is really kind of a nice sort of poetic way of understanding disease rather than sort of hardcore science, factual sort of stuff. And that's why I like it. Anyway, I've also got a diploma in Tcm Massage, which is Tui Na. It's more like a medical massage the Chinese do. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I've done level 2, 500 hours, and I've been doing it for over 10 years. I've also had, I've always been interested in psychology, meditation, applied kinesiology, so I've been studying those throughout the last 10 years as well. And I've lived in the Orient quite a bit. I lived in China. I was an English teacher for a while. I was in Japan at a university for a while. Lived in South Korea and Thailand, of course. So I really have quite a bit of experience and with Oriental thought or Oriental approaches to in the medical field in particular. So generally people ask what I do these days, and what I've broken it all the way down is that I'm an author and I'm a teacher. So I've written quite a number of books on these sorts of subjects, and also was a teacher. So courses like this, I just seem to take the teacher role. I like teaching because I feel like I can get access to more people with the knowledge rather than just treating one-on-one in a clinical practice, which is fine, but I just feel like teaching and writing seems to be able to get the message out a bit further. So a little bit of background, especially in relating to depression. So I'm 35 now at the time of this recording. So I experienced depression when I was around 19 to 24 years old. And it was partly connected with excessive drug use at the time. It was strongly connected with a sort of lack of direction. That was a huge component. Not sure what I wanted to do. I didn't go to university. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I didn't want to be an accountant. I knew that for sure. I didn't want to be all the traditional pathways, and luckily my parents actually allowed me the space to do what I needed to do, which involved more like traveling and doing lots of crappy jobs basically as well, and that really helped. But during this time, I was feeling very lost, very confused, unmotivated, and a lot of sort of anxiety, social anxiety was there as well. So a bit of a timeline. So when I was 16, I started, marijuana and stuff started. I quit school actually about 17 years old. I just lost interest in it, and I became much more interested in other things, like parties and girls and things like that. And interestingly, the social script is that when a child or when a young man goes to leave school, that everyone's really, really worried about them. But at the time, I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't depressed. I just knew that studying what they were teaching me in school wasn't what I was interested in. So I felt actually quite strongly convicted to leave school was a good idea. So later on, about 19, and the depression kind of really hit in. Again, feeling a bit lost and no true friends, because a lot of my friends and associates were more associated with the drug world and not really true friends. So I started getting a bit lost. And then when I was about 20, I started exploring yoga as a new way to sort of manage my emotional health and psychology and stuff. And then I went to China and did all this traveling. And by the time I was about 24, I actually started formal education at a health college, studying Chinese medicine, sports massage, and it just continued for another. I think I was in formal education for about 9 years. So one of the biggest breakthroughs for me was I discovered Okido Yoga, which is a Japanese influenced yoga in Brisbane when I was growing up, and it was like no other yoga I'd ever tried. It was sort of more free flowing, more community driven. There's like partner yoga as well as solo yoga. It wasn't so serious. That's what I really liked about Okido Yoga. It's not so serious. It's a bit more, yeah, a bit more free flowing with it. And that's actually me at the front there. And there's one of my head teachers. And this is at a retreat, or sorry, an intensive during a seasonal intensive. And a little bit more about Okido. So yeah, it's Japanese influence. And up in the top right-hand corner, he's the founder. His name is Masahiro Oki. And he was a monk during the Second World War and had this sort of epic story. Uh, Basically, though, after all the war had finished and all this stuff, he went back to Japan and created a dojo, or a place of practice up in the hills, and basically just opened the doors to anybody who was interested in learning what he had, I don't know, discovered about life, if you like. Uh, and down in the left corner, we've got this like partner work, partner yoga, communication. It's always a lot of fun. And another cool aspect of it is that we tend to be in circles in the room rather than sort of lines, and that helps sort of create a nice atmosphere. And it's kind of that Zen thing, you know, in circles. So it was around 2008, 2009, and I was actually well in the depths of studying acupuncture and Chinese medicine quite seriously when I started having these aha moments, specifically involving or around psychology and mental illness issues, depression, stuff like that. Because in the textbooks, we really started to dig into, you know, what is depression, really, what's going on the psychological level, how do you treat depression using acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and stuff like that. And it was really, really fascinating to me. It blew my mind. It made so much sense to me, much more than anything else I'd come across. So while I gained access to that information and it revolutionized the way that I viewed it, I wasn't quite sure what to do with it at the time. I thought I'll just take it into clinic and I'll start observing it and testing it out for myself. So then I go into clinical practice, and there's really two cases that come up in clinic. One is usually pain management or musculoskeletal conditions like sore knees, sore elbows, sore necks, which are quite easy to treat with acupuncture. But the second one that comes in a lot less often is depression, anxiety, or psychological problems. And I actually find treating this stuff much more interesting and much more sort of fulfilling as well. But what I did notice, especially with strong depression and the way that we're practicing it, or practice in Western society, the way that we practice clinic, is that acupuncture itself was not good enough, sorry. So acupuncture alone was simply not good enough. For these psychological imbalances, we really need to look at multiple aspects of the lifestyle, food, exercise, mental practices. And also, if we are doing acupuncture, we need to be treating like very often, like every second day for a couple of weeks, to really encourage the system to shift its way of its pattern, and to get people to commit to that level of treatment is often very hard and can be very expensive. So it was a bit of a battle actually to go about it that way. But what I did notice is that it did make a lot of sense, the textbooks, what we're saying, and I did observe some breakthroughs. And what I really noticed is that there's 4 key elements to treating depression effectively. We need Qi education, and that simply means becoming aware of the sensations in your body and becoming aware of when you're going down a particular thought pattern that is supporting you, or you're going down a particular thought pattern or behavior that's not supporting you. And only when you've got awareness of your Qi or awareness of sensation can you really learn that level of awareness. The second thing you need is manual hands-on treatment. So you actually do need every now and then a professional. They could be anything. They could be a Reiki master, they could be an osteopath, they could be a massage therapist. But basically a third party, if you like, to come in and sort of trigger and stimulate and move our Qi. It just really helps boost and speed up the process of recovery. The other thing is nutrition and herbs. So nutrition and herbs are really good at working out very deep internal conditions. Acupuncture and massage is very good, what they call like the external layers of the body. Nutrition is internal. And then of course lifestyle and training. So certain things are really going to support the recovery process, like sleep is going to be good. Engaging in certain types of practice, exercise is going to be very supportive as well. So lifestyle and training is a major component of also the recovery process or healing oneself from depression. So just to come back to the main point of where we're going with all this is that we're going to learn how to clear depression for good without struggling, taking medications, or giving up the things you enjoy. So without the struggle is that there's actually a way that you can adjust or shift your lifestyle in a way that you just naturally, your Qi, your energy gets, and your organ system gets healthier, and bad habits, bad thoughts just tend to drop away. It's not like you have to make them drop away, they just tend to drop away. Taking medications, we'll talk a little bit more about that soon, and giving up the things you enjoy. So actually, we want to find what things that make us feel good, and then find and work out if they are, if they're induced with drugs or alcohol or anything like that, then potentially find the other things in our life that give us similar high, that we don't require that. And then it's kind of like you're still experiencing the highs, but you're just going about it in ways that are more healthy. So we're trying to get away from this like oppression, suppression, space that you can never, that part of your life is over and those feelings are over for good. No, we want to actually encourage you to find things that make you feel good, make you feel high, that are healthy for you, and actually keep doing those things. Get yourself bigger and stronger that way. So just imagine those being free of depression. So what is the opposite of depression for you? Imagine feeling clear. Imagine waking up in the morning, kind of springing out of bed. Imagine having more energy to interact with your friends, your loved ones, your children, if you have children. Imagine being excited by your work that you're engaged in, being involved in projects that you feel passionate about, working in teams that you enjoy. Imagine feeling like you are connected to a purpose, to a life purpose. Again, that may be connected to your work or connected to your family, but enjoying participating in these things. Imagine having a resource or an inner strength that you can call upon at any time. So if a stressful situation comes, that you have got the resources and the energy to stay on top of it and not be shaken or overwhelmed. And just imagine feeling motivated and inspired most days of the week, most of the time. So what would that look like in your life? So I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to show you, and I'm here to indicate to you that it is possible to live in such a way. It is a reality for many people on the planet. Many people that have come before us and who will come after us. It is actually a natural state of being, to be awake, to be clear, to be motivated, to be living a life with energy and passion. So this is where we want to get you. It is closer to who you really are than the depressive state. So first of all, I want to tackle one big statement that's very common, is that treating mild to moderate depression doesn't require medications. Ooh, so it's a little bit controversial potentially, because everywhere we look, no matter how strong your depression is or what your symptoms are, the first line of call is always speak to your doctor, and usually their first movement is to get out the prescription pad and give you antidepressants. So I'm not here to say that that's not just that taking antidepressants, not to take antidepressants, sorry. I'm here to say that it is possible to treat it without antidepressants. But if you're on antidepressants, don't stop them. Speak to your doctor before changing anything like that. Let's talk a little bit about statistics, and we'll talk a little bit about pharmacology. So interestingly, with depression, women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with some form of depression. And depression is often found to coexist with other illnesses like drug addiction, cancer, simply because, especially with cancer and other illnesses, is that it's kind of like a doom and gloom diagnosis. So the doctor tells you you've got cancer, and then automatically, you're going to feel pretty bad about that. And so often that can trigger depression. So about antidepressant medications, so amazingly, in the Australia and the UK, 8 to 10% of the population are currently taking antidepressant medications. In the US, it's even more. We're moving up to about 13, 15% of the people. So that's 23 million people on antidepressants. And antidepressant prescriptions have doubled in 10 years from 2001 to 2011. So it's fast becoming, I would say, close to an epidemic of people that are very anxious, very depressed, very lost. And are antidepressant medications working? If they were, wouldn't it be curbing the growth? So are antidepressant medications effective? So there's mixed data reports, one being that they seem to be not much more effective than placebos. Placebos always tend to hit about 30% of the population, so 1 in 3 people, you can give them a sugar pill and they will start to get better. So you give them an antidepressant and it's saying that 1 in 3 people who take that antidepressant will start to feel better. So it's not great statistics. Again, though, if you're on them, it's not a reason to go off them, anything like that. But they just aren't very effective. And the complications that they add and the other signs and symptoms that they can present with people can actually complicate your medical situation or your mental health as well. So if antidepressants don't work, often the next point of call, especially if there's insomnia involved or anxiety conditions as well, is that the next thing they go for is tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and antipsychotics and anti-anxiety pills. So now we're getting onto a concoction of drugs to try and manage signs and symptoms. And again, does it really work? Well, you wouldn't be at on this presentation if it did work. And cognitive behavioral therapy is the next line of defense. So it's a psychological approach, and it's probably the most popular psychology therapy that's going around at the moment that psychologists and counselors practice. But again, the statistics seem to be around a 30% success rate with people. So again, it kind of works for some people, but for the majority, it doesn't seem to solve the problem. So about pharmacological medication. So the main issue, the main problem with pharmacology, or pharmacological medicine in particular, is that it's always seen as toxic to the body, no matter what it is. It could be the pill, it could be a Panadol, it could be a Nurofen, it could be an antidepressant, it could be a tranquilizer, it could be heart medication, anything. While it can be helpful to curb signs and symptoms, the body will always see it as a toxin, and treat it as such. Why does it see it as a toxin? It sees it as a toxin because it's not recognized by the body as a natural organic compound. So it kind of freaks out a little bit. So nature, plants, trees, and all the wonderful things, it tends to produce synergistic compounds. So this is a relationship of chemicals that tend to work well together. And what pharmacology does is that they basically isolate one or two of the main active ingredients or active compounds or active chemicals inside the plant or whatever it is, and then they mass sort of simulate it, they mass produce it, and that creates a drug. So what they're doing is basically they're testing plants, and like the opium poppy has opiates in it. So what they'll do is they'll get the opium poppy, they'll do a study on all the compounds in it, identify one or two of the main ones, and then extract that, and then basically blow that up so that it becomes the major ingredient, and then they create synthetic replications of it or whatever and mass produce these drugs. So science as a whole, we're not sophisticated enough to understand how all the relationships within the plants and the herbs and the chemicals are interacting with each other. We're very good at isolating them and working out what that does and maybe interacts with this or that, but maybe in a plant it will have 30, 40, 50 chemicals interacting, and we're not sophisticated enough to work out what the relationship is and how it all works. So we're doing the best we can with pharmacology as well. So the main thing about it is it tends to produce singular, extracted, synthetic, synergistically poor compounds that nature has not recognized before. So that's why the body freaks out whenever we put it in. Or it doesn't freak out, it just doesn't know what it is or where it comes from, and therefore it'll treat it as a toxin no matter what it is, which means that it ends up in the liver and puts some stress on the system in some way. And like I said before, that's okay. I'm not here to bash it. I'm not here to say that it's wrong. With our level of understanding scientifically, pharmacologically, and all those things, it's a very effective, very powerful method of medicine. However, it is not aligned with the synergistic natural way of nature, essentially. So hence it's got a slight downfall. So this brings me to the way that we are treating, or the most common philosophy that we tend to buy into around depression is that they're saying it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, and that's all it is. So if that sort of basic thinking is true, then simply we extract these synergistic compounds, put it in the body, and it should plug the hole, fix the chemical imbalance, and then we're fixed. So that's the general understanding or general philosophy in the way that we're treating it now, and I really question that whole thing. I just don't believe it's true. I think that's a very sort of band-aid approach to it all. It's a very misunderstanding about what's really going on at deeper levels. So what I think is happening, and on the level of chi, when we bring in the word chi, chi is subatomic level activity, subatomic level information. So chemistry is not subatomic. Let's call it atomic, or at a level where it's a bit more dense. So I would say that there's something going on, and there's an imbalance in the chi field at the subatomic level, at the basic information level, which then is carrying down the chain and then affecting chemistry. So chemistry is actually late in the game. It's not the original cause of or trigger the depression or the problems down the line. So next thing I want to sort of go into is that psychology actually has little to do with the brain. So in Western, before I go on, This brings up another question, which is like, where is the mind actually located? Does the mind have a physical location? The brain does, but is the mind located in the brain? So we're really starting to touch on this territory that we really don't know much about, especially in the scientific paradigm. So in the Western model, or the Western approach, we tend to think that psychology is all in the brain. It's all these chemical things going on inside the brain. And that's what's doing it. So again, if you just stick some chemicals in there, you'll fix the problem. And they theorize that the mind is likely to be in the brain, but they're not really sure. They really don't know. So the Eastern approach, or the Oriental medical approach, and it also comes from yoga as well, is that psychology is actually largely dictated by the organ system and the overall health of the tissues. So they're saying that psychology is actually kind of like the whole framework of the body and the mind is one sort of amazing, unique collection of relationship. So the mind, the psychology is not located or isolated in the brain, but psychology is also influenced by organ health, by tissues, by circulation, by all these other factors, as well as the brain. And that the mind, consciousness, is actually located, if it did have a physical location, it's actually located in the heart. So some supporting theories that psychology is not just about the brain. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. So there's a first theory is cellular memory. So this is the theory that our cells and our tissues actually store memories, trauma, emotions, things like this. And if you were to actually remove those tissues or remove those cells or remove those organs, that those memories would go as well. And there have been some cases where like you get an organ transplant, like a heart or a liver, and there's been strange phenomena with the person receiving the organs that they start having different kinds of memories. They can recall strange things that's never happened to them. And the theory is that it has come from the tissues inside the organs. However, this theory is not proven. So there has to be more work done on that. But anyone knows that like if you do gymnastics or something when you're a child and then you don't do exercise for like 20 years and then you go back to a yoga class or gymnastics class, you know, it's really quick that your body picks it up again because there's some deep memory of something of the past. The second supporting theory about psychology is not in the brain, is this thing called, oh well, they're calling it the second brain. And they're saying the second brain is actually in our guts, in our intestinal tract. Why? Because there's 100 million neurons, which is actually more neurons than in the spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system, which is all the nerves in your arms and your legs. There's more neurons in your guts than there are in your arms, your legs, and your spine. That's a lot of neurons. And the other thing about it is that it can work autonomously. So the guts doesn't require the brain to tell it what to do. It can work isolated to the brain. The other amazing thing about the guts and these neurons is that 95% of the serotonin is actually found in your guts, not in your brain. So this is a massive big deal. This is a massive understanding. And 50% of the body's dopamine is actually in your guts, not in your brain. So we're all, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, they're always talking about dopamine and serotonin and all these wonderful things. And they're like the happy chemicals. However, no one's really told us, or not many people have actually said that they're actually located in your guts. So, you know, things like nutrition, exercise, all these things are going to support serotonin and dopamine because that's where it's located in your guts. And dropping pharmaceutical drugs into your guts is probably unlikely going to be a good thing in the long run for these serotonin and dopamine receptors and stuff. So simply due to lack of research, science tends to say that the digestive system may affect thinking and cognitive skills. So they're kind of going, oh yeah, it's likely, but they haven't done enough studies. Because what I've noticed is that they're just scanning and studying the brain like it's the answer. However, they're not scanning and studying like the liver, the heart, and its interactivity with the brain. So I think that we've got kind of a tunnel vision going on in psychology and in a lot of Western medicine, is that we think that the brain is the key. And while it is a powerful organ, no doubt, it is not working in isolation. And we also need to be studying the organ system and the tissues a lot more. So another supporting theory that psychology is not in the brain is that heart disease and mental health are likely to be connected. So they've found a connection between, if your heart health is out, high cholesterol, heart murmurs, all these sorts of things, irregular heartbeat, it tends to be connected with mental health. And obviously stress is another factor there. So some other really cool things about the heart is that the heart has its own electromagnetic pulse, and it actually produces a pulse in amplitude that is 60 times greater than the brain. It is so powerful that the brain actually entrains to the pulse of the heart over time. It's called entrainment. So therefore, actually one way to treat mental sine waves, or what's it called, brainwave activity, is actually you can change the heart rate, which then will shift eventually through time, will shift the brainwave states. And the other cool thing about the heart is that it can work independently of the brain, such as when someone goes into a coma or gets brain damage, their heart is still beating, their organs are still functioning, yet there's no brain, so there's no sort of that conscious or the mental capacities are gone. So again, a nervous system in the heart, which is independent, a nervous system in the guts, which is independent as well, which are all influential factors. So the Eastern TCM approach is that the organs and the tissues support psychology, and it depends on the amount and the quality of the chi and the blood in the organs. That's what keeps the organs happy and healthy. So the other factor is the relationships between the organs. So again, everything is synergistic. Everything is based on relationships between things. As in nature, the sun, the water, the wind, it's all working together, or it's all like coming in at different points and different things. And you need all these elements together in order for it to be a successful ecosystem, essentially. So the organs require chi and they require blood. They need good amounts of chi and blood. The chi is like a flowing, if you can imagine, like a river, the same as blood. We need a good river system in the body in order for all the tissues to be accessed, all the cells to be accessed, for all the organs to be fed. Once the river is healthy and flowing, then generally the psychology of the person stabilizes and they become quite, they become potentialized. However, if one of the rivers dries up or gets diverted or something happens, the organ system starts to lose its function, and then that starts the beginning of disease or imbalance. And then the longer it stays like that, the more serious, the more serious and the deeper the imbalance becomes. So how to encourage chi and blood? One way is to avoid eating to 100% full or larger, or more, I should say. So they say eat to only 80% full. That allows some space and it doesn't tax the stomach system or the digestive system. So that's a really good, easy tip. Every day you need to engage in some kind of movement. Even a walk around the block, exercise obviously, yoga, things like that are always going to be helpful. We live in a physical body that has been evolved and developed and designed to move. while all our gadgets and computers and stuff encourage us to become more sedentary, our bodies have not evolved in a way to support that enough. So therefore we do have to still honor our physicality, our physical structure, and we need to move the body quite often. If you can get to bed before 11 p.m., get to sleep before 11, because that's actually when the liver does most of its work. Avoid overexertion, so too much stress, too much work, too much drugs, too much alcohol, too much. It basically drains the system, and that's what chronic fatigue essentially is, and all those crashing sort of syndromes is because we tax the system and we run out of resources internally. And of course, spontaneity and fun is such an important factor. I think as we get older, we get more serious and we don't prioritize fun. So fun is essential for mental health. So the last big statement I want to tackle is that it's easy to treat and clear mild to moderate depression. And this is because if it is really only comes down to some of the organs becoming a bit unhappy, then if we just make the organs happy again, the mild to moderate depression actually dissolves and it's easy to clear. So I'll also just mention here is that I'm really only tackling mild to moderate depression. I'm not attempting to tackle severe depression. Severe depression is a different ball game. It's because the imbalance has gone very, very deep and it's very, very complicated. So what I'm talking about in this presentation, I'm not attempting to address severe depression, psychosis, schizophrenia, or any of those strong forms of mental illness. So if organs do dictate our psychology, which organ dictates which feelings, thoughts, emotions? So this is basically when we start into the 5-element theory. And the 5-element theory is it's fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And each element contains an organ system, and as well as that each organ system dominates or dictates a particular emotional state or a psychology as well. So in this little talk, I'm going to talk about wood element, which is the liver and gallbladder. Why? Because the liver and gallbladder is actually like the first line of defense and often the first stage of disease. So the first line or the first signs and symptoms that the liver is a little bit unhappy is there's anger, frustration, feelings of just being stuck in life, stuck in the building, stuck in your car. There's irritability, there's moodiness, and generally the mornings are hard work. You know, it's a lot of, it's really hard to get going in the mornings. So that's a sign that the liver is not flowing as easily as it could be. When the liver is happy, we go quite the opposite. So we feel calm. There's a sense of going with the flow. There's contentness. There's lots of expression, like lots of bodily movements and dancing and sort of playing around a little bit. There's a feeling of growth and expansion, growing in the self, like you're learning, you're moving in a direction that feels good for you, feels aligned with your goals. And you enjoy movement, you enjoy exercise, you enjoy dancing, you enjoy playing with others. So basically, an unhappy liver and gallbladder presents the earliest signs of mild to moderate depression. So basically, if we can catch it as early as possible and start addressing the liver gallbladder, then often we can dissolve the depression before it gets really, really strong and really, really embedded. And just the asterisk means that in unbalanced liver and gallbladder doesn't always translate to having a disease in the liver. That's different. Disease and diagnosis in the Western model is different to when in the Eastern model when we talk about imbalances or even disease. It's not the same thing, because in Eastern Med we're looking at the energetic components and we're working at that level, whereas Western Med focuses on the physicality, the chemistry, more of a dense level. So yeah, just not to confuse you with that or worry you. So a bit of a reality check is that it's actually normal as a human being to experience a wide range of emotions, and it's completely normal to experience things like anxiety, fear, anger, frustration, sadness, grief. Those are that's part of being a human. And it's not that we're trying to run away from those things, or it's not that we're trying to avoid them. The key the key here is that we don't want to swim in them. We don't want to stay in them too long. When we stay in these states for too long, it starts to make a home inside us. And that's when it gets problematic. So sure, someone close to us dies, our dog dies, something like this. Sure, feel sadness. But if you're still grieving and feeling sad and hooked on it 10 years after your dog's died, and you still can't sleep and you're still sad about it, that's way too long. And that's definitely an imbalance, definitely some sort of mental imbalance going on. So there's an element of realism here in the Oriental approach as well. And I find like positive thinking and all that sort of pop psychology stuff is good. However, it does seem to try and teach us to avoid these emotions. And what we're saying, or what I'm saying, is that don't avoid them. You can still experience them, but just don't stay in them too long. So just to reiterate what I just mentioned is that problems come and diseases tend to dig in when you prolong the amount of time that you spend in them. So generally speaking, if you, this could be a physical illness as well as a mental sort of experience, emotional experience, is that generally when you have something happen, let's say I get this strange pain in my knee, I hit it on something or I twisted it a bit funny. So that's normal, that's life. However, it should clear within 2 weeks by the body's own rebalancing system. However, if we don't address it or it doesn't clear within 2 weeks, it goes longer than 2 weeks, it's starting to become a little bit more complicated now. So once, it's like getting the flu or the cold as well. So, usually the body will battle it and they say 10 days and you'll be over it in 10 days and it's actually fine. But if that thing lingers on you, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, it's really, it goes deeper into the lungs, it becomes more complicated, you get a stronger diagnosis, you need stronger drugs, it becomes a lot more problematic. So we don't want it to go more than 2 weeks, generally speaking. Things like grief is a bit different, but just basic level stuff is that we don't want anything to go for longer than 2 weeks. And definitely if things are going for 1 to 3 years and beyond, it's becoming entrenched, or it is entrenched. So if you've got depression and you've had it for longer than 3 years, it's quite entrenched now. So if the liver and gallbladder is kind of the first point of call for depression to kick in, what disturbs it? The first one is general toxicity. So poor food choices, maybe the environment's not so supportive, but also toxicity builds up when you don't rest much. If you don't sleep much, because the body's actually detoxing itself all the time, and being relaxed, being content, having good quality sleep is going to help detox the body massively. So things like alcohol, drugs, smoking, toxic relationships, stress, all those things are going to keep building up inside the body, and over a period of time it'll get so strong that the liver will just not be able to handle it as much. I wanted to get to this one. This is one of the big things that annoys the liver and gallbladder, is this thing called stagnation. Now we don't use stagnation in the West as far as medicine, but we use it a lot in Eastern medicine. And it simply means that we stop growth. We stop moving in a direction that's supportive of our soul or our development. And this can be physical stagnation, such as not moving the body enough and you're just sort of becoming heavy and lazy. Second one is mental stagnation, so you're not growing, learning in the mind. And then there's a spiritual level as well, which I'm going to touch on it next. So depression, if we just revisit the meaning of it, depression means to be pressed down upon, being squashed if you like. And then stagnation is something similar where, like, if you can imagine like a energy ball or a ball rolling down the hill, and then suddenly the hill stops being so steep and the ball starts losing its momentum, and then it gets stuck on a rock or a little hole it falls into. So they're very, very similar. Depression, if you've got enough pressing down upon the ball that's rolling, eventually you're going to make it stop, and that produces stagnation. So if you are experiencing stagnation, then how do you go about treating it? How do you move stagnation once the ball's stopped? So this is where the three levels or the three dimensions of the human being kicks in. And this is what I just touched upon before, and I'll talk a little bit more now. So there's three levels that the human being is operating on at all times in its most sort of basic, in a very basic way. You know, we might have more dimensions than this, but this is the three most obvious ones. And the thing about stagnation is that, and disease, it can manifest on any one of these levels. So it could be stagnation through the body from not moving, stagnation in the mind from not growing, developing, thinking, contemplating, learning, and then a spiritual stagnation, so not considering, contemplating your role or within the greater scheme of things. And also, you know, the questions like, who am I? What am I here to do? You know, how can I best serve? All these things sort of fit into that spiritual dimension and kind of give us a soul mission, if you like, a mission in life. And I think once you're on that mission, it's a very sort of spiritual, enriching process. So this is where we're going to go into the next level. If you want to learn more about this sort of stuff, if this stuff so far makes sense to you, then I encourage you to take it to the next stage, and that is basically into the program that I've designed or into the course I've created. And inside this course, we go through all the three layers. And I give you tips and tricks for each of those layers to show you how to move stagnation and essentially cure and clear the depression out of your system for good. So again, just imagining a life or a feeling where you have plenty of energy reserves in your body, and when you wake up each morning, you're actually enthusiastic to participate in life. You've got energy to hang out with your friends and family and play with your children. You feel inspired by a vision, by a movement, inspired to work on projects and be around people that share similar ideas. So all these things are possible, and many people on the planet are living in this way. They're living in this way because they're not stagnant. They've worked out how to keep things moving. And that's what this whole course, and this is what this is all about, and this is what I'm trying to sort of spread the information about. It's not just a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's actually deeper than that. It's more on the level of energy as well, and we've got to approach all the levels, not just one level. So Western med and the chemistry level stuff tends to approach the physical body only, and the mind and the spiritual component is usually left abandoned or dormant and not really discussed. So I want to change that. I want to get in there and start tweaking those elements out so that we can get people moving in the right direction. So if you want to know more, the course I've created again addresses all these things. We go into chi education, learning to feel into sensations in the body, increase your awareness, talk about manual hands-on treatments, so which ones may be more appropriate for you and why. Also talk about nutrition and herbs, which ones sort of hit the hammer on the head, hit the nail on the head, sorry, and how to start working at the internal space. Also talk about lifestyle and training, like some tips and tricks to help boost your chi and move the river of chi and blood through your system. Talk about all three layers, and we really focus in on the liver and gallbladder. So in the first module, I talk a lot more about this Tcm psychology, so the 5-element system, and how the interplay of the organs plays out. This is essential information to understand, because then we can work out where we are in the process. I also talk about the sequence of disease, which is really essential information as well, to understand where you're at and how we can work at that, clearing that up. Module 2 is how to clear stagnation in the body. So first of all, we go for the body level, and this is actually the easiest level to approach. So I've got a bunch of tips and tricks and exercises and things like that to help stimulate the stagnation out of the body level. The third module, we approach diet and herbs, and I explain more of the Oriental diet approach. And it's not about calorie counting, it's not about all that nonsense. It's actually about increasing organ function, increasing the qi and the blood flow through the organs. Again, if we get the organs happy, everything comes back online. So in the herbs, I share with you 2 of the main herbs that pretty much just really hit home with the liver and the gallbladder. So far, the first 3 modules, Introduction to Tcm Psychology, Clearing Stagnation in the Body, and the Diet and Herbs. You know, looking at the value so far of around $400 worth of information, knowledge, tips and tricks, and stuff like that. As well as that, we go to the next level after that, Module 4, and we go into the mind. So I share with you some sort of psychological approaches or methods, some energy psychology techniques as well, to start moving the mind in a better direction. Also talk a bit about like finding your passions, and I've got sort of like a lot of good questions to help you work out where your passions are or what you're designed to do and how we can start moving you in that way. Then we go into stagnation on the spiritual level. So this is again focused a lot around more like asking good questions and some basic methods or practices of observation of self and sort of testing out some certain things. It's a little bit more abstract, but I've designed the course so that we build up to this level. It's really important to approach the physical level first, and then the mind, and then once those things are in place, it's much easier to approach the spirit. And then the last module, I just show you some more hands-on methods to actually trigger some acupressure points on your body so that you can do it on yourself, you can even do it on other people. And it's really focused in on moving the chi through your body a bit easier, so moving stagnation. And I'll show you about 5 or 6 main points that really helps with that. So all up, we've got 6 modules. Each module at least $100 worth of value. So already we're hitting around $900 worth of value. But today, and what I've designed with the course, I don't want to make it too far out of everyone's budget. So I've really cut the price down to make it more suitable, more accessible to more people. And as well as that, I'm going to offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So for any reason, if you're not satisfied, you just send me an email and I'll just give you money back straight away. You've also got a lifetime access, so you can tap into this information or this course whenever you need. So if you have no time at the moment, but you're really interested, you can purchase right away and then just come back to it in a month or so. Up to you. And you've also got ongoing email support. So I'm available, or one of my team is available to get back to any questions you may have to help you on your journey. So who is this program really designed for? So I really want to service people that where I've really aimed this program at, or this course at. So again, it's mild to moderate depression sufferers, not severe. I want to work with people that are open to the possibility that it's not all about this chemical imbalance in the brain stuff, and who have therefore got a more of an open mind about what it could be. And people who are willing to do 15 minutes of practice a day. That's all I'm asking. that's all that's really required to get stuff moving in the right direction. And if you're willing to put in at least 15 minutes a day, plus a little bit of time for study or whatever, then please consider yourself eligible. But if you're not willing to do any of the practices, then please find another path. So yeah, the people that's not designed for are severe depression or severe mental illness. People who are very set on the scientific paradigm, thinking that they prefer psychology, chemistry as the explanation, and people not willing to do the practices. So the results that you'll get if you follow the information and the course, you'll just generally have more physical energy available. The mind will become much clearer. Losing weight is actually a lot easier. There will be an alignment with a life purpose, and that may take a few months, but it's definitely a part of the equation of depression, treating depression. I don't think you can live free of depression unless you do have a focus on a life purpose or a mission. I probably prefer the word mission. I like that. The other thing is you have better sex and you become more attractive to the opposite sex. So that kind of part of your life actually starts coming online a lot more. You wake up more motivated. There's more opportunities because people see in you that there's something about you that they want to be involved in. And there's always an enhanced capacity for creativity. So today the price, what I'm going to be doing as like an intro price, is you're going to get the full 6 modules, access, lifetime access, email support, 30-day money-back guarantee for $97. And as well as all that, I'm going to throw in some bonuses. You're going to get 3 other smaller courses which support this course. It's all based on sort of Oriental medicine stuff. So we've got 5-element theory, how to increase your internal energy, and meditation for beginners, which is a big course that a lot of people are involved and a lot of people want to learn more about. So you get that free as a bonus. Plus, I'll throw in 2 books, my best-selling books, The Art of Self-Muscle Testing and The Art of Self-Adjusting. So these books have been selling really well and getting lots of great feedback. They're on Amazon at the moment, but you'll get those completely free. So this is basically what you'll get, the whole thing. You'll get the full program, How to Clear Depression, 6 modules. You'll get these extra bonuses. You'll get 3 other smaller courses plus 2 best-selling books. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee. You get ongoing email support, and you get a lifetime access to this information. So all over, it's worth over $900. But again, I'm just going to drop it way down to $97, one-time purchase. And that's basically it. So again, I want to make it available to you. If you really want to do the program and you can't afford the $97 today, then maybe try emailing me and maybe we can work out maybe a payment plan or something like this. I'm open to suggestions. Again, I want to get the information out there. I want to get people experiencing it for themselves. So basically, it's all in your court now. I've given you a lot of great information and hopefully it makes sense to you. And if it does make sense to you and if it does seem like this is the path you want to go down, then it's all up to you from now on in. Are you ready to go to the next level? Are you ready to be involved in the course? Are you ready to learn how to manage your depression in this way? Are you willing to do what's necessary? So if you are, then please sign up. I hope to see you inside the course soon. And if not, that's completely fine too. I hope to see you around again in another course or a book or something like this in another way I can help. So yeah, back to the free offer that I mentioned early on in the presentation is basically if you want chakra balancing or moxibustion for beginners as a free online video course that I've created, then all you have to do is email me, info@michaelhetherington.com.au with the subject header, webinar free courses, and just indicate which course you would like, and then I'll get back to you with a code and boom, you're in, all good to go. So that's a bit of a thank you present for staying around. Thank you so much for giving me your time to listen to this information. I really hope it's been helpful, and I hope to see you again soon, another time, another place. Thank you.